A reading from the book of Ezra chapter 5. At that time, two prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, son of Iddo, began to speak in the name of the God of Israel to the Jews who lived in Judah and Jerusalem. When Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, son of Jehozadak, heard their messages, they began to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. And the two prophets helped them. Almost at once, Governor Tattenai of west of Euphrates, Shethar-bozenai, and their fellow officials came to Jerusalem and demanded, "Who gave you orders to build this temple and equip it?" They also asked for the names of all the men who were helping build the temple. But God was watching over the Jewish leaders, and the Persian officials decided to take no action until they could write to Emperor Darius and receive a reply. This is the report that they sent to the emperor. To Emperor Darius, may you rule in peace. Your Majesty should know that we went to the province of Judah and found that the temple of the great God is being rebuilt with large stone blocks and with wooden beams set in the wall. The work is being done with great care and is moving ahead steadily. We then asked the leaders of the people to tell us who had given them authority to rebuild the temple and to equip it. We also asked them their names so that we could inform you who the leaders of this work are. They answered, "We are servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the temple which was originally built and equipped many years ago by a powerful king of Israel. But because our ancestors made the God of heaven angry, he let them be conquered by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylonia, a king of the Chaldean dynasty. The temple was destroyed, and the people were taken into exile in Babylonia. Then, in the first year of the reign of King Cyrus as emperor of Babylonia, Cyrus issued orders for the temple to be rebuilt. He restored the gold and silver temple utensils which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem and had placed in the temple in Babylon. Emperor Cyrus turned these utensils over to a man named Sheshbazzar, whom he appointed governor of Judah. The emperor told him to take them and return them to the temple in Jerusalem and to rebuild the temple where it had stood before. So Sheshbazzar came and laid its foundation. Construction has continued from then until the present, but it is still not finished. Now, if it please your Majesty, have a search made in the royal records in Babylon to find whether or not Emperor Cyrus gave orders for this temple in Jerusalem to be rebuilt, and then inform us what your will is in this matter. The word of the Lord. A reading from the book of Ezra, chapter 6. So Emperor Darius issued orders for a search to be made in the royal records that were kept in Babylon. But it was in the city of Ecbatana, in the province of Media, that a scroll was found containing the following record. In the first year of his reign, Emperor Cyrus commanded that the temple in Jerusalem be rebuilt as a place where sacrifices are made and offerings are burned. The temple is to be 90 feet high and 90 feet wide. The walls are to be built with one layer of wood on top of each 3 layers of stone. All expenses are to be paid by the royal treasury. Also, the gold and silver utensils which King Nebuchadnezzar brought to Babylon from the temple in Jerusalem are to be returned to their proper place in the Jerusalem temple. Then Emperor Darius sent the following reply. To Tattenai, governor of west of Euphrates, Shethar-bozenai, and your fellow officials in west of Euphrates. Stay away from the temple and do not interfere with its construction. Let the governor of Judah and the Jewish leaders rebuild the temple of God where it stood before. I hereby command you to help them rebuild it. Their expenses are to be paid promptly out of the royal funds received from taxes in west of Euphrates, so that the work is not interrupted. Day by day, without fail, you are to give the priests in Jerusalem whatever they tell you they need. Young bulls, sheep, or lambs to be burned as offerings to the God of heaven, or wheat, salt, wine, or olive oil. This is to be done so that they can offer sacrifices that are acceptable to the God of heaven and pray for his blessing on me and my sons. I further command that if any disobey this order, a wooden beam is to be torn out of their houses, sharpened on one end, and then driven through their bodies. And their houses are to be made a rubbish heap. May the God who chose Jerusalem as the place where he is to be worshipped overthrow any king or nation that defies this command and tries to destroy the temple there. I, Darius, have commanded. My command is to be fully obeyed. Then Governor Tattenai, Shethar-bozenai, and their fellow officials did exactly as the emperor had commanded. The Jewish leaders made good progress with the building of the temple, encouraged by the prophets Haggai and Zechariah. They completed the temple as they had been commanded by the God of Israel and by Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, emperors of Persia. They finished the temple on the 3rd day of the month Adar in the 6th year of the reign of Emperor Darius. Then the people of Israel, the priests, the Levites, and all the others who had returned from exile joyfully dedicated the temple. For the dedication, they offered 100 bulls, 200 sheep, and 400 lambs as sacrifices, and 12 goats as offerings for sin, one for each tribe of Israel. They also organized the priests and the Levites for the temple services in Jerusalem according to the instructions contained in the book of Moses. The people who had returned from exile celebrated Passover on the 14th day of the 1st month of the following year. All the priests and the Levites had purified themselves and were ritually clean. The Levites killed the animals for the Passover sacrifices for all the people who had returned, for the priests, and for themselves. The sacrifices were eaten by all the Israelites who had returned from exile and by all those who had given up the pagan ways of the other people who were living in the land and who had come to worship the Lord God of Israel. For 7 days, they joyfully celebrated the festival of unleavened bread. They were full of joy because the Lord had made the emperor of Assyria favorable to them, so that he supported them in their work of rebuilding the temple of the God of Israel. The word of the Lord.